Croatia. We just visited the country of Croatia for our very first time. We did inland ventures and went to various islands. It's such a beautiful coast. And today we're talking about all things Croatia.
Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik, Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time. We just went to Croatia for our first time. Well, not exactly our first time. To be totally transparent, you've been there before.
I was there as a very young child on a road trip with my parents. We were in Germany, living there. My dad was stationed there with the Air Force. And we did a road trip that took us, I remember we got as far as Italy and then over the Adriatic Sea into the very northern tip of what at the time was called Yugoslavia. And that country, after the Soviet Union collapsed, broke up into its previous components, which were Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro. And so now we went back I was there as a boy.
And that part that you were in would have been what is now called
Croatia. That's right.
So, and what do you remember from that?
I remember that the beaches were very rocky, smooth rocks, but rocky, and that it was most comfortable to be out in the water if you could buy these rubber slip-on shoes that you would wear, and that made going to the beach a lot more fun.
Still true. Pebble beaches are one of the things featured on the coast of Croatia. And so we definitely came prepared with some sweet water shoes to enjoy that. But other than that, it really was our first time for both of us going to Croatia. And I was so excited to be able to see everything first together. And so we met up at the airport, Erik coming from a sailing trip in Greece, and then me coming from the States. And we had a week to travel inland. And then we met up with our next group of awesome sailing guests and did more of the water side of Croatia. So we just kind of want to walk through some of the highlights of our experience in Croatia.
Yeah, some things, highlights, and then maybe some takeaways, lessons learned.
Yeah, we can actually start with a lesson learned because we met at the airport and Erik's flight was delayed. So by the time we were both there and through the airport, it was like after midnight.
Yeah, we caught a cab at about 12:30 to get to our Airbnb, and we tried to rent a car, but it was just too late. Everything was closed. So we got a cab, and it was expensive, very expensive. We were going to a nearby town called Trogir, and that's even though the airport is the Split Airport, which is the biggest city in northern Croatia, the closest city is Trogir, and that's where we stayed. And I think it was like $50 for like a 10-minute ride. But what we learned is that if you can use Uber there, and Uber cab rides were maybe half the cost. So maybe we were getting gouged because we were tourists, but Uber kind of protects you against that. And so if you're an Uber user, it's super easy. Most of the cab drivers there use it. And we found that whenever we did, we got a better rate on our ride to and fro.
We also didn't travel like quite so late on the other times. So we felt like we were paying the late night premium. But that was the first thing we learned was like, hey, we'll definitely want to be using Uber. And also, I think, we went to Trogir. So Trogir is this, they say it's spoken of as one of the most romantic cities in Croatia. And it's this medieval city that's built completely out of limestone, which limestone is one of the things that we loved most about the country.
Limestone is beautiful stone. It's very light colored. In fact, the White House, the presidential residence in the United States, is built out of limestone from Croatia because it gets so white. Mm-hmm. And they build houses out of it. They build fences. They build walls. They build
the streets.
breakwaters. They build streets out of it. There's just stone everywhere. And Trogir is this old medieval city that was built out of limestone, has cobblestone streets, and all the walls are just these beautiful stone walls. And the streets are so narrow. I think that was the first thing our cab driver said was, we gave him the address, and he says, "Well, I can only get you so close." I'm like, okay.
That's okay. I've only been traveling for 24 hours. I would love to carry this bag.
Yeah. And turns out that the streets in this medieval city are vary between 5 to 7 feet wide. And there's just no way to get a car down it, let alone turn a corner of any kind. And so everything is walkable. And yet it's just been beautifully maintained and renovated. And, you'll walk along and there's like literally an ATM built into a wall.
It's still like it's surrounded by stone.
And it's like, that's the ATM, or there's breakfast and cafes, and above are these little, just really comfortable and modern interiors, Airbnbs, which is where we stayed. And it's a very lived in city, but it has lots of modern conveniences, and it's very comfortable and clean. So it's like this combination of ancient medieval design coupled with all the comforts, like electricity, hot water, electricity, shops, restaurants, cafes,
haircuts,
salons.
Along these little cobblestone roads, you peek in, oh, they're getting a haircut. Yeah.
And then when you get to the far side of the city, we came in from the land side, and you get to the far side, it's right on the waterfront, like a river. I can't remember the name of the river, but palm trees and all these, like a big promenade that you can walk along, and restaurants where you can just sit and people watch, and lots of yachts and, boats get parked there. And on one corner of the island of Trogir is actually a little island, and the town kind of takes up the whole island. And there's this fort. And I guess the fort was used in one of the scenes for Game of Thrones. I guess they used a lot of the forts and towns in Croatia because they're such well-preserved medieval architecture. And anyway, they light it up at night, and it's just beautiful, walking friendly.
And I know one day you like hopped in and swam for your morning exercise. And
yeah, you can just jump in the water right there, because we were talking about the stony beaches. There's all the water in Croatia has kind of like a rock base underneath it. There's very little sand and very little mud. And so the water is super clean, just because nothing is really getting churned up from the bottom. And so all the water right along these waterfronts is crystal clear. And so we went out for a morning walk, and I purposefully wore my swim trunks, and I just took off my shoes, got in and swam around the marina. The marina was very clean, which is not normally the case, and just got out and toweled off, and we walked home. And so we were on land for our first week, but you could be in the water easily and enjoy it, whether or not you're getting on a boat or not.
Yeah, that's true. So then after Trogir, we did go into Split, and we used a different mode of transportation this time. We were a little shaken by the
cost of the cab,
the expensive cabs. So we're like, let's figure out how to use the buses. And I think we took maybe the 37 into Split.
I think for €6.
And we were like,
it was like an hour away. It was very reasonable.
You're like, this is awesome. We can just kind of look around and notice the country between Trogir and Split. I think it was like 8 miles, or anyway, it wasn't super far. So we enjoyed that. And then,
and it dropped us off at the main harbor of Split, and there's cruise ships. And so Split is very much the tourist capital of northern Croatia, where they have, at least that day, there was one cruise ship, and I hear they have sometimes multiple a day, but it's very much set up for lots of visitors.
Yeah. And like we often do, or always try to do when we're traveling, we went to church that day, which is such a fun way to meet the locals. And people always talk about that when they go on a trip, like, I want to have an authentic experience. I want to mix with the locals. And most of everybody that we saw in the harbor were people off the cruise ship. Mm-hmm. But we went to church, and we got to meet people who actually live there, and we got to translate it into the language and sing in Croatian. And we started figuring out how all the different letters are pronounced that have the different symbols above them. So that was a great way to get like some local flavor and an intro to the language. And then as we passed signs, we were like, I can now read that sign because I know how to pronounce the letters because I was singing in church on Sunday. Um, and let's see, also in Split, we went to, not that same day, but we went to the Diocletian Palace. That's one of the main attractions right there in the harbor, besides just people watching in the water or beach play.
Yeah, and the Diocletian Palace, which I did not know, was the summer, or I would say the retirement residence for one of the Roman Caesars. I forget which one, but he managed to not get killed or assassinated or die some untimely death. He lived to old age and retired and chose to make his retirement home in Croatia, just across the Adriatic Sea from Italy. So it might feel a little bit far away, but pretty close
Sure,
to
it was part of
to
the
to
empire.
center of Rome. You're not too far from Rome. But anyway, and the palace has now been modified, and very much like Trogir, the old town portion of it has been filled with shops and restaurants and art galleries and other kind of it's Airbnbs and places to stay. But it was built with a huge system of aqueducts or aquifers underneath, and you can tour it, and we kind of lightly toured it, but just beautiful ancient Roman architecture coupled with this medieval foundation that used to be there. And so there's a lot of history, to layers and layers of history to uncover in these cool Croatian cities.
Yeah, that's really true. Okay, then I was most interested in seeing waterfalls. And we don't have to talk a lot about it, but Croatia is a little bit famous for waterfalls, and they have a few national parks where you can see them. And maybe we can talk more about the one that we saw with our sailing group.
I will mention, yeah, we'll talk about the one that we went with our sailing group, but we rented a car and we drove inland to, there's two national parks that feature these special tufa waterfalls. And tufa is basically a buildup of, it's kind of like inland coral, where there's minerals in the water that have a chemical reaction with the soil, and they build,
Kind of becomes hard.
yeah, it becomes hardened, but and so it builds up these natural dams, and not like beavers would build a dam with sticks and mud. It actually kind of turns into a rock formation, and it creates an edge on the edge of a lake, and then the water spills over it. And so there's just these beautiful cascading waterfalls of lakes kind of coming down out of the mountains, and they have these
Like
hanging
grassy,
garden type
yeah.
look where it's like grass and branches of green just hanging off the edge of the waterfalls, and water filtering through it. And at least on the one that we saw on the boat, there's sort of villages that are built alongside the lakes. So we went to the one that we went to inland is called Plitvička, and it's probably the larger of the two. Although the waterfalls in either place are equally gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And so we drove to Plitvička and we stayed 2 nights there, and then we drove to almost way south to the Neretva Delta.
I want to say something about
Oh,
going up into the mountains. What was really fun and a little bit unexpected, I don't know why we didn't expect this, but even though it was the middle of summer and it was really warm and it was definitely beach season, going up into the mountains was such a nice little reprieve, because we actually needed to pull out like a sweater or long sleeve flannel. And it was nice to just be a little bit chilly. I know it had been up over 100 degrees where Erik was in Greece, and in Croatia, the temperature was more moderate, but we were like high 80s, low 90s. And so a little, you know, 48 hours up in the mountains was just the perfect break, and then back to the beach. So tell about Neretva.
yeah. So we went from these kind of cool mountain weather, and then we drove south into the Neretva Delta, which is south of a town called Omas, I think. And it's right on the coast. And one of the big rivers comes out of the mountains and creates this very shallow delta, which is prime real estate for beginning kite surfers.
Yeah, and not beginning, but like that was just like prime.
Yeah, it's great for expert kite surfers, but I'm definitely in the beginner category. And so I took a couple of kite surfing lessons there, basically filled my trunks with a lot of river silt because I was on my butt a lot.
They did have sand at this one. Yeah.
Yeah, there is sand and silt because it's where the river spills out, but it's shallow enough that you can kind of stand up to your knees in water, and in some cases actually stand on top of sandbars or silt bars. But then it's deep enough that if you get surfing kites, if you get on plane, you can just surf, and there's great winds always in the afternoon. Picking up around 2 or 3 o'clock is when the afternoon, the best sailing wind and the best kite surfing wind would happen.
Yeah, and that was so fun. If you know there's something specific that you like to do outdoorsy, like if you want to go kite surfing, that really was like a perfect place to go. And they had a beach bar and places you could just sit and eat. But everybody was just so friendly and staying out of each other's way as they run those long threads to set their kites up. And it was just so fun to watch. I think the first day there were maybe over 100 kites, people out there kite surfing. And it was, even for me not actually doing it, it was fun to watch. And I could actually just, because the water wasn't deep, I could just go right up close to where Erik was taking his lesson and take pictures. And I was literally the only person taking pictures, but I'm okay with that. And I am happy to have my pictures.
You're so generous to me.
And it was good. It was good. I think we previously had an episode where we talk about what if your spouse can't do the same things that you're doing, and how do you,
or maybe doesn't want to.
Or yeah, that could be it too. Maybe they aren't interested in the same things. And at this, I was kind of like, at this price point, I'm interested in one of us doing this, And so for me, I had a great day. I put in my earbuds and I listened to some podcasts I had downloaded and just like get to take pictures of my love. And it was fun for me as well.
Yeah. So even if you're not doing something, I think what you're getting at is one way to be supportive is just to take pictures and help preserve the memory for your partner.
Here's you getting dragged along through the water.
Here's you face planting. Here's you. She's got a lot of great pictures of me biffing it.
Well, you never know, because when I took those pictures, there were those times when
I was almost kite surfing.
Yeah.
So I will persevere. So yeah, we were in the Neretva Delta. We stayed up in a place, I think it's called Omas on the coast. We just picked a place at random.
S with a little V over the S.
And it was just a random town. It turned out to be gorgeous and fun. And we had dinner on this beautiful terraced restaurant overlooking the
gorgeous sunset.
Yeah, gorgeous sunset. I'm trying to think of what the body of water was. I guess it would be the Adriatic Sea.
Yeah, and
it was kind of like in between us and one of the islands. Croatia has tons and tons of islands.
I remember the restaurant was called like Aga, which I think means salt. But
yeah,
that was so nice too. It's just fun to go to all the different Airbnbs, and in Croatia, every Airbnb we stayed at, we were, part of the deal was that we would meet with the person and they would give us the key. So that was another way that we got to talk to different local people. And in that case, it was a couple who run a little gelato shop, kind of cafe, and then upstairs they were renting out rooms, and there was a balcony which we could see out to the sunset and the water, and it was just so nice to be able to like walk a super steep hill. Like driving, steep. Okay, if you have issues with driving, like maybe an electric bike is the way to go in these areas, but it's those kind of roads that like bigger than show gear, a car could get in, but often two cars are trying to pass where two cars can't fit. So one will have to sort of pull over into a driveway and let the other one come through. So they pick up the garbage at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
I lost the standoff between me and a gasoline truck that was coming downhill at us, and I just had to back it up.
That's right.
But I'll just say this, we were not picking pricey Airbnbs by any stretch of the imagination. At any price point, you get a beautiful view.
Yeah, we were definitely going.
We're doing economy provisions
mind, yeah.
or accommodations, yeah.
But it felt like luxury because there's your view, and you're going to walk 100 feet and have your feet in the water. So that was really fun, and just seeing all of the other people there as well. And then
we continued up the coast, and then by that point we were meeting up with our crew. We went north to a town called Marina Agana.
The town is actually
called?
called Marina, and we were going to the marina in Marina, Agana.
So we're like, take us to the marina. And they're like, okay. And they take us to the town. And anyway, we had to get a little bit more specific. But it's a small town where the charter company is based that we were using. And again, kind of a cool little medieval tower right on the waterfront. And a grocery store within a couple hundred yards of where our boat was docked. And we, one of the things that Emily and I geek out about is we like to visit grocery stores. And there's Tommy's, there's Plodine,
Kaufman, and there was another one that started with an R.
there's one that I love that's called Consume.
Oh, Konzum.
Consume with a Z, but like
Konzum.
So for those consumers amongst us, you can go there. Anyway, they've got a good variety of grocery stores there, and we were able to find everything we needed easily. Everything's in euros if you're wondering about currencies.
Yes, Croatia became part of the European Union in 2023, and they switched over to the euro.
And credit cards are widely accepted. Visa and MasterCard, I would say. Diners Club, I don't even know what that is, but I know they exist. And
American
I think
Express
I think
is not-
Discover Card might be the new version of Diners Club, but American Express is not very widely accepted.
And I would note at this point, we've now been in the country for
A
like
week?
6 days. Yeah. And we've had no trouble getting along in English. So if that's a thing you're concerned about, we didn't have any trouble at all anywhere that we went.
We speak zero Croatian, but everybody speaks a little bit of English. Every cab driver, every Airbnb host, certainly the people at the marina and the charter base, perfect English. And we were fortunate to meet people at church that spoke English, and so it's very English speaking friendly because many people from all different countries come there throughout Europe, Scandinavia, Western Hemisphere, and just sort of English is the common language, which for those of us that speak English feel very extra fortunate in the world to come and go using my native language to get around. But it was pretty straightforward.
And then I want to talk a little bit about the food up to this point.
Go for it.
Because, there were some delicious things. That one of the reasons that we love to go to the grocery stores is we want to see like what kind of cookies do they have? What do their baked goods look like? And pretty much everywhere we have a lot of the similar vegetables, but it's always fun to see like what kind of treats do they have. And I know one of the things that really stood out to Erik is he was able to buy a jar of Nutella that had straight edges. So he got every bit of the Nutella out of that jar because it didn't have that little screw top lid you have to work around. Yeah. He had a very popular post on Instagram about that Nutella. So
go check out my reel. It's a big deal.
But some things that were different. One of the restaurants we went to, we had nettle soup, and it's literally made from stinging nettles. Not something you like to walk through those bushes on a hike, but the way they prepare it,
so delicious,
just creamy. It's kind of like it was green with kind of like a spinach. I think they paired it with potatoes.
And it didn't hurt that I was eating it at that place when we were up in the mountains. And so it was a little bit cool, probably in the low 60s, maybe upper 50s. And I was ready for something a little cozy.
They did some beautiful creamy design in the top. But anyway, we're like, let's try this nettle soup. Because usually I'm like, nettles. So I felt, I don't know.
That was a win.
Yeah, that was a good one. And then I ordered something called sopska salad, which afterwards I ordered everywhere that they had it. And it was very much like a Mediterranean style salad with tomatoes and cucumbers and red onion. And there's so many different kinds of feta in that region. There was a feta that was hard enough that they could grate without it crumbling. So it was this big mountain of grated feta on top that I just stirred up into it. It was just so delicious.
And then they put balsamic vinegar on it, and it literally looked like an ice cream sundae. Like you had this whipped cream, which was the grated cheese, the grated feta, and then it had balsamic vinegar that looked like chocolate sauce.
And you see these like little red spots that look like cherries or something. And
anyway, it looked like an ice cream dish, but it was actually a salad.
Yeah, it arrived and I was like, did I get the wrong thing? Because I thought it was a dessert. And I was like, this is my salad.
I would have had the opposite reaction.
Yeah.
But...
Oh, yeah. You've been like, what? But it was really delicious. They also had something called chebab.
I think that's all right.
Chebab. I think it's the soft ch, the shebab, and it is basically like instead of doing one big hamburger patty, it's a little more of like a sausagey flavor, and
Yeah, it's
they
like a sausage link shape and size, but
yeah,
thicker.
they explained it to us and said, "Oh, this is like a meatball, but we do it in a long shape
Yeah,
instead of in a round shape." And but instead of like just doing a big hamburger patty, they would put like six of those little
links.
sausage links in a bun or
They would
on
almost
the
like,
side of your meal or
yeah, like I got it at dinner one time and it was on a, they called it like a meat platter. And then I got it for lunch one day and it was in a pita type thing with, or in a, like a
like a panini.
like, yeah, the bread was sliced open and they put some cheese on it and it was more like a sandwich. So it just seems like, kind of a versatile meat dish that they use they eat in a variety of ways, but it was
Yeah,
really yummy.
it was really delicious. And so once we had it the first time, then everywhere else we would see it either on a menu at a restaurant or at street food. We would be like, we know what that is, and we know it's delicious, and we can recommend it. And so
Totally.
we would eat that. Okay, I'm trying to think if there was any other super standout thing that I had. Oh yeah, I mean I had some incredible gnocchi, just like this creamiest, best gnocchi of my whole life
Oh yeah,
at
it's true. I tried some and it
in
was
Omish
really
at that Terrace
aga.
Aga restaurant.
The other thing that I'll recommend is we tried some of the local sodas, and they have
Mm,
one called Pippi.
great,
It's like
that's a good
it's
one.
a cute little girl with pigtails, and freckles,
I
and
thought I had the Coke bottle, but I
you
do. I
you
have it right
did.
here.
So that's kind of like a sun kissed 7 Up, like an Orangina type thing, and it was really yummy. And then they have this thing called Kokta that they recommended, and
Yeah,
short for cocktail, but not alcoholic cocktail. It's a cocktail of herbal extracts, they say.
yeah. There's like
And
11 different herbs that they put together in there.
and I would say that it's maybe a little bit towards Dr. Pepper. It's not a
It's a little
cola,
bit.
but it's got a little bit more kind of spicy kick to it. Um, and maybe like if herbal tea and Dr. Pepper had a baby, something like that. Anyway,
Yeah,
I really liked it, and we got several of them that we had on the boat, and I would order it when we were out. And so, anyway, those are just some local things that were a win for
yeah.
me.
I'll say one more drink they had was called Hydra, and it. I didn't know what it was at first, so I had to kind of research it and Google it because it looks kind of like it's going to be like a monster drink or something like that. But it's
Oh yeah,
actually as if it were kind of
like an energy drink.
but it isn't an energy drink. It's like a carbonated Gatorade. So it has electrolytes in it, but it doesn't have any caffeine. It's not especially sugary. It also tasted a little bit like an Orangina, but I did get
I
a
liked it.
sunburn by the end of this trip, and so I was really happy to be hydrating, getting a little bit extra electrolytes, and it's like a carbonated, so like a soda, but it is actually hydrating you. So that was probably why they call it Hydra.
Haha.
Anyway, get other good food, but I saw a lot of those same things on menus from the mountains to the seashore. Those salads, chebap, the gnocchi. So
Croatia is a small country, so there's wonderful things there, but it's not like varied by regions so much. I mean,
right, I didn't see like an Asian food restaurant or a
but you're not,
Mexican food,
and you're
but
also not
their
having
food
like
was good.
the mountain culture versus the coastal culture. I
Yes,
mean, they're close enough that like we drove half the length of the country in probably about 4 hours.
true. So anyway, it was delicious. It was gorgeous between rolling hills, cliffs, mountains, Roman ruins, medieval ruins, or not
Or not
ruins, still
ruins,
in
like
really good
preserves.
shape, preserves. Um, buses can get you just about anywhere, cabs everywhere. English is easy. They accept credit cards. Oh, one of the things that I had forgotten because I haven't been to Europe for a while, keep a few euro on you because you do have to pay to go to most restrooms. €1, €1 to €2.
Yeah, keep 1 to 2. And in a lot of grocery stores, you got to put €1 or €2 into the cart
Mhm.
to release a grocery cart for you to use it. If you're an Aldi shopper in the U.S., you're familiar with that system. It's almost every grocery store in
In Europe.
Croatia and throughout Europe. It's like putting in a quarter and it releases your cart, and then when you chain it back to the other ones, you get your quarter back. So cost
Yeah.
neutral, but it's a way of them kind of making sure that people don't wander off with their carts.
Yeah, and everywhere we went, people were super friendly and really wanting to help us have a great experience. And So I would just say Croatia, definitely. I only have two thumbs, so two thumbs up. I would definitely go again, would highly recommend. There are other things that I'm really curious to see in Croatia. Next time on my bucket list would be going further north. I think the town is called like Ula or something, but they apparently, according to
Pula,
that, Pula, oh, that's weird.
named after, similarly named to a Finnish bread that we know and love.
Um, but anyway, apparently they have one of the best preserved amphitheaters.
Colosseums.
Coliseum. Yes, sorry, not amphitheater, but like if you go to the Coliseum in Rome, you know there's that famously missing section. In if you go to the one in Croatia,
No
not
missing
missing,
section.
not missing. 90% original. Just that the limestone seats were removed by the Venetians when they were in charge for some other project they were more interested in.
And
So,
interesting, just to kind of give you a sense of scale, you can drive from Trogir or Split to Venice in about 4 hours.
yeah.
So you can, Croatia is right between, pretty much between Italy and Greece. You get a little bit of Montenegro and maybe Albania on the coast. But it's like if Greece and Italy had a baby, you'd have Croatia. And that's exactly where it's located.
And what a great mix, right?
Yeah.
All the pasta, all the delicious meat, pebble beaches, cool mountains, friendly people. It was great.
Yeah. So that's the water, that's the land version of
Yes.
Croatia. And then we got on the boat and really, really enjoyed the charter base that we went with this time. And the boats were in great condition. They took really good care of us.
Really organized.
Yeah. I always think it's a little bit chaotic because in the Mediterranean in general, all the charter boats go out on Saturday, or you board the boat Saturday and you leave on Sunday. And all the charter boats come back on Saturday. You come in Friday night, spend your night in the marina, and then you get off Saturday morning. And I just thought this was crazy because everyone's coming and going at the same time. Croatia is the first time that I've seen it work because they're saying, we're just going to batch everything. The employees we're going to be there. I don't want to say around the clock, but they're there from early till late. They answer all your questions. They are able to keep things organized because they're just there to do a blitz for kind of 48 hours. And then everyone's gone for the weekend. It's quiet and they can kind of do their slow boat maintenance and other things. But everything was very well organized.
I didn't feel rushed or like I felt well attended to, and it felt very easy.
Yeah. And we went out and there was a storm the first night. And so I said, we want to anchor because they were kind of suggesting that we have a meeting with all the skippers and they kind of make route recommendations and answer questions. And they're like, hey, the first night there's going to be a big storm. You may want to be pretty tucked in at a marina or on the dock. And I was like, I kind of want to anchor. And so they recommended a spot for us. And we had a beautiful anchorage, very well protected, no issues whatsoever. And we just got to sit on the back of the boat and watch a lightning storm happen kind of behind us. And everyone was competing to see who could get the best pictures of the lightning. And we got some really National Geographic worthy shots. Never worried about it. It wasn't like we were in danger or anything like that. It's kind of nice to realize that you can be on a boat and even bad weather can be what we would normally think of as bad weather can actually be a really beautiful, fun experience.
I know a few days later, everyone was going around the table kind of sharing things that they liked about the trip. And that was certainly mentioned. Like the lightning storm was one of the things that was my favorite about this week so far. So
yeah. So we spent the first night. We won't do a blow by blow of all the places that we went, but some highlights are we went up past a town called what's the one that we sailed past to get to Kirka National Park? Skradin is where we ended up. Anyway, I'll look it up while I'm telling the story. But we went up this river and we went to the Kirka National Park. And the Kirka National Park is one that you can get to by water or by land. And it's another one of these waterfall national parks.
And it's so, like Krkka.
Krka.
Oh, Krka. Kirka.
Kirka, yeah. And I was like, how do you say that? I don't know. So we sailed past Šibenik is the name of the city.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to go up what I think is called the Šibenik River. And we go past a cool fort. And then we went all the way up the river to where you're not able to sail any further. And we tucked into a beautiful, beautiful marina there in a little town called Skradin. And we had dinner on shore. And then the next day we bought tickets and you get on a ferry that takes you up the river into the national park. and you can walk up and see these. They have beautiful wooden pathways that walk through and over and around the waterfalls.
Just gorgeous, abundant water pouring out everywhere. You feel like you're in a tropical paradise. It's almost more than you can even really take in how beautiful it is. You're like, how can I fully appreciate this? And then you walk, you know,
Walk another 50
a
feet.
couple yards, and you're like, mind is blown again by this new arrangement, a collection of waterfalls, and how the light is hitting it, and how blue the water is, and it's just, yeah, it was just so gorgeous.
And then one thing that was interesting was that the next day we were going to grab a few things at the grocery store before we headed out. And the grocery store was closed. And the next grocery store was closed. And turns out all the grocery stores were closed because
Okay, so then
it
it
was
was
a
like
holiday.
Homeland Victory Day, and so we Googled it, like, why would all the grocery stores in Croatia be closed on August 5th? And in 1995, I think they came to the end of the war, what they call the Homeland War.
Yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to jump
Yeah,
in.
yeah, go ahead.
So when Yugoslavia broke up after the fall of the Soviet Union, there was a lot of consternation about how things were divided and what countries went where. And because different parts of the country had different resources that were helping make the country run well. And as they splintered off, I think, there was a lot of agriculture and a lot of, I'll just say agriculture in the mountains, but a lot of the banking and financial aspects were in the northern region, which was mostly Croatia. And so to separate out, kind of like saying, hey, if we're going to divide up the United States and the East Coast was going to become its own country and the West Coast was going to become its own country and the center was going to become its own country, there are a lot of people that would be happy about that, I know, politically, because that's sort of how we've politically divided. But you're saying we're going to cut off the financial and the political capital are going to be separate from the agricultural heartland, and then the sort of the tech and West Coast, you know, just like the tech capital of our country would be separate. We'd be each segment would lose a lot, and you'd no longer have the strength of all of them combined. And so they fought a war. Different factions fought wars trying to either prevent or to make the division happen. And 1995 is when that war came to an end. And so it was a holiday that we didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And it happened in our lifetimes. Like I was in college.
1995. Yeah. And so that was the first thing that we noticed about that holiday being celebrated. But then what it turns out is that many towns were having their own private celebrations, and maybe we'll talk more about that later. But first, we went to Kirka National Park.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And then from Skradin, which was near Kirka National Park, we sailed out to some. We hit a couple of spots, but eventually made our way out to the Koronati National Park, which is a series of very remote, very blank islands that are off the coast of mainland Croatia. There's very little out there. It's just sort of a stark beauty. But they have these little pockets of civilization. And we went to a marina, and they had a beautiful restaurant. We had dinner there. And then at night, as the sun was going down, some of us put on our water shoes, I guess. Anyway, we went for a little night hike up to the top of these hills and had a beautiful view of a full moon over the water and the islands, and we could see our anchorage down below. And there are no real trees, just
rocky.
So you just had a beautiful view the whole time in all directions.
Yeah, and then the next day we just went. We saw goats, not goats, sheep were all over that. I couldn't find them. I got on my shoes and ran up to get closer to them, and they had already left. They know their way around.
They moved on.
They moved on, but then we just spent the day swimming, snorkeling, relaxing, and
we did a long sail that day.
This was so fun. One of the things that we loved so much about this trip is that we had good wind, and we sailed. These are sailing trips, right? And we would just say, hey, now we're just going to go out and tack back and forth, and we're going to practice working the sails and everybody having turns. And we just did a lot of really fun sailing. I think we hit a record for these trips of like 10.4 knots, or was it higher?
I think 10.3, 10.4, but yeah,
Yeah.
anything over 7 knots is really good. And to be in the mid tens, we were pretty cranking.
Yeah.
And just to kind of draw a comparison here, since I've been back, I had a conversation with a guy who owns a boat that's in a charter fleet, and that's something that I think about doing from time to time. And he was kind of telling me about his boat. He doesn't have enough confidence to skipper his own boat, and so he'll usually go out with a captain. And he told me that it hasn't been a great experience for him
Mm.
because he says a lot of the and I don't mean to disparage the charter companies. They're friends of ours and we work together. But I never use their captains
And
and never
yeah,
really
this
have.
is one man's
This is
experience.
one man's
Yeah.
experience. And I say all this just to kind of draw a contrast to what Emily's describing. And he said, yeah, a lot of times the skippers don't want to put the sails up. They just want to motor around because it's work. Putting up the sails is work. That's one reason I like to have
It's
crew
effort.
crew
Yeah.
members pitch in, and and who knows how long the wind will hold that direction, and you might have to change the sails or change your tack for it to be worth keeping the sails up. And so he said a lot of times he would go out with the hired skippers, and they would just not want to sail because it's work, and they would rather do less work than more work.
It's easier to just punch in the direction and turn on the motor.
And I've had people come out with us and they say, "Oh yeah, we did a trip with another company in another place, and the skipper just said, oh yeah, there wasn't enough wind to put the sails up." And they happen to be in the Bahamas, and I happen to know that the wind is pretty much good almost
All the
all the
time.
time in the Bahamas. It's really hard to not have good wind in the Bahamas, and so this was a skipper that just didn't want to
just
sail.
didn't feel like it.
But I guess just to say that we're going out of our way more and more to try and make sure we're getting as much sail time as possible, even if it means we're not going to take the most direct route to where we're going to go next that day. We'll just say we're going to take some extra time, and even if the wind isn't going in our direction, we will still sail.
You'll say, "Who wants to go sailing?" And everybody says, "Let's go sailing." Like you'll always offer, like, we could go straight
We can get
there.
there early and have lots of time to wander through town, go ashore and wander through town and check it out, or we can take longer and
Who wants to go sailing? And we'll still get there in plenty of time to check out the town. And everyone always wants to go sailing.
So yeah, this last day or the second to last day, we had a nice long downwind sail where I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 hours, which is not. I normally don't sail that many hours in a row on most days, but because we were going downwind, which is very comfortable and gentle and easy, it was just a nice, relaxing day.
And because we sailed so much, our crew had, like, our guest slash crew, right? Those who signed up for this immersive experience, they actually had points of reference to say, this is what upwind sailing is like. This is what, different conditions are like. And then when we had that long downwind day, they all had enough data and experience to be saying, this is really comfortable. This downwind sailing thing, like, this is where it's at, and it's fun sailing upwind for other reasons, but usually not for as long as it's fun sailing downwind. And so I loved how much sailing we did that week. I loved how much experience the crew got with all different kinds of um, sailing circumstances. They learned so many different points of sail, and there is, when you're sailing, a lot of just sitting and letting the boat carry you. So we would have great conversations or read books or take a nap on deck or whatever. But when it was time to tack or whatever,
Everyone's up for it.
up and ready to play. So
And I think two things that were new on this trip that were fun for me were, one, we did enough gentle sailing that people are like, hey, get your guitar out. Let's play music while we're sailing. And a lot of times, if you're not on the right point of sail and you're kind of bashing into the waves, it's the wrong time to try to kind of have a chill, hang out on deck and just talk and play music. But we got to do some of that. And then also on our last day before we went back to the marina, I said, hey, you guys have done enough that I'm just going to pretend that you just pretend I'm not here. And we were out at sea, and I was like, hey, I pointed to an island. And I said, I want you guys to, we're going to turn the boat around, and I want you guys to sail us to that island. And I'm going to be right here, and I'm not going to interfere. I'll make, I won't let anybody get hurt, or I won't let the boat get damaged, but you guys are going to make all the decisions about how we get there and what we do to get there. And I think that was kind of fun.
It was so fun. And at that point, everyone was like, okay, we've been in the sun, we've been in the wind, we've been in the water. We're like very accustomed to this because we say, try living on a sailboat for a week. And by then they had that
You've tried it out.
experience. Yeah, they knew they'd been cooking meals, they've been doing all of the things. And they were like, okay, okay, we get it. And then when you threw that out there, there was just like this heightened level of awareness and urgency and like, do I remember? Do I know? Do I really know what to do here now that it's on me? And it was such a fun game, and they all worked together and did a great job.
Yeah,
And
they
they were
rose to the
really proud of
challenge.
themselves. And they're like, "Do we get a gold star?" And anyway, we had a piece of paper where we would track them, just like mark little stars. Like they got stars for water usage, and
Did we have a paper?
oh yeah.
Oh, well,
Anyway, so
yeah. We give
they want they were like, one of them said, are we gonna get a gold star? And I was like, I will give you a star. And I just started making stars every time they got praise from the captain on doing a good job for things, and they had like many stars by the time we finished the trip.
No, it was a great trip. We've already got Croatia back on our schedule for next year. The first week of August, we're going to go again. And actually, after Labor Day, we're going to be announcing our whole schedule for the year. So stay tuned for that episode and tune into our email list. If you're not already on the email list, you can just go to theawesomefactory.nyc and scroll to the bottom, and you can get on our email list, or you can check our social media. So anyway, that's kind of, those were the high, and then we sailed back to the marina. We had a fun last night on the boat. We cooked dinner on the boat. We ate through all of our leftover food, tons of ice cream. And
but we were just getting gelato everywhere. So
yeah,
we had ice cream left. I would say this was our first time to Croatia. As Erik mentioned, it will not be our last time to Croatia. If Croatia is somewhere you want to go, we hope you'll come with us. And I think one of the things that I love about these trips is that even when we go to places that we've been before, it's always a little different. And also, one of the things that makes each trip like its own snowflake or its own thumbprint or its own unique situation that nobody else can replicate is the chemistry of the people who go, the mix of the people who go. Everybody who comes is so generous, but they each have different experience and things they're enthusiastic about to share and be generous with. And I learned so much from the people who were on this trip with us. They became such good friends on this trip. I know two of them were continuing on. They had planned solo travel, but they ended up going to Italy together, taking a ferry, staying together for a few more days after our trip ended before they split ways. And yeah, I mean, maybe you've heard this before on these podcasts, but it is, I think, because of the way we gather the people and everyone talks to the captain first. It's always just a really beautiful mix, and they very often are starting friendships
that carry on.
That carry on.
And also, whether it's before we get on the sailboat, like what Emily and I did, or afterwards, like these two people that Emily's talking about, it's very doable to expand the trip to include more than just the sailing. You can arrive early and see things before we cast off, or you can wait till we come back to the dock and then continue your journey. And at least half of the boat did that this time. So
okay, we thought this was going to be like a micro episode, but apparently we love Croatia.
And we're coming up on an hour. So
what could go right?
What could go right? Hey guys, before we wrap up, I just want to give you the sailing update. This is Erik Orton, and the update is 2025 is sold out. One caveat. We actually got a bigger boat than we expected for our November BVI trip. So November 10th through the 15th, we have one additional spot for one female solo traveler. November 10th through the 15th, 2025, British Virgin Islands. If you want to join us, we've got one spot for a lady. Otherwise, the rest of the year is sold out. In a couple of weeks, we are going to announce our whole 2026 lineup. And I'm going to save it for then when we give you all the details. But if you do want to go in January, February, those trips are, even though we haven't announced it yet, they're actually mostly full. So hop on a call with us if you want to see about going on those trips. And the one thing that I'm going to leak out is that I am super excited that we are adding a trip to Norway. I've never sailed there. We're going to team up with a local skipper and he's going to show us around, but we are going to go to Norway next year. And so excited to tell you more about that and the whole lineup for the year. But if you want a sneak peek, jump on a call with us. We can talk you through all the options and we'll release the rest of the schedule to everybody else later here in a few weeks. That's the sailing update. Hope to sail with you someday. And if somebody you knew was thinking about coming out on a trip like this, what would you say?
I say, oh yeah, do it. Yeah, you'd have to do it because it's so, to me it's a very unique thing, you know, to do. I never didn't even realize this was even really an option, or because I never thought about it. So I thought this is a great experience. Yeah.
It's a Wildcat secret.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So